in any other timeline in maybe 5 years ago, this would be the most exciting announcement to ever come out. And I wish I was excited about this because this is one of the most crazy things to happen in gaming in a long time. And so, announced on the CD Projekt Twitter account and their YouTube with this video, they announced 5 new Witcher games and a single IP new one and a sequel to Cyberpunk. That's a lot, especially for this studio, the studio that's had trouble getting out Cyberpunk without it being completely and utterly broken. So not a good sign whatsoever that they're tackling 7 games, 5 of which are Witcher ones. So yeah, we've got the Orion one, we've got the trilogy of Witcher games that will most likely cover Ciri, and they said it will be released over the next 6 years. I don't really have hope for these Witcher games because of the current state of Hollywood, the current state of the gaming industry, just business and companies in general. And then that's really fast to be pumping out games when they struggled in 5 years to make just one Cyberpunk game. And there's going to be 2 spin-off Witcher games that we don't know anything about, and that new IP that I was talking about. The main problem with this is this video here that we've got, and I want to go through this video. That's the main reason I want to just give that brief recount. So this is the group strategy update where they announced all these projects. Not ratioed. That's important for later. Now, this is the video that they put out at the same time, which is their approach to ESG. Now, I've seen parts of this video. It's really maddening that a place like CD Projekt Red in Poland is having videos like these and company mandates like these. And I'm very happy to see that it is ratioed to hell and back. But I just want to go through this video with you guys and see how cringe it is if I can get through it all. I need to reshare with the audio. CD Projekt Red is usually very good about copyright, so I'm not super worried.
My name is Piotr Nielubowicz. I'm a member of the board and CFO at CD Projekt. I'm also personally involved in a range of environmental, social, and governance initiatives, ESG for short.
Now, this is an interesting thing to remember. Up like 6 months ago, a year ago, all these big companies, all the people on Twitter, all the woke people were like, ESG is a myth. It's not actually happening. You're making it up. There's no such thing as a social credit score. Now they're not even hiding it anymore. They went through all that trouble to gaslight people like Comics Division, especially, who's been covering ESG phenomenally. Definitely go check out Comics Division. They've been gaslighting the fans, Comics Division, and just general customers in general that ESG isn't a thing. Now it's blatant, and that is just incredibly insulting, especially after the horrible tactics that they went through to get to this point. And I'm really not impressed with CD Projekt Red. They always seem so separate from Hollywood, so separate from the American gaming sphere, that I had hope that they'd continue on the track that they were on with the Witcher trilogy and Cyberpunk. Doesn't seem like that's going to be the case anymore. No real company can escape it, even if they're a foreign company. And this really hurts because they care so much about the Witcher universe. Their lore accuracy is off the charts. I've never seen an adaptation so accurately convey the story as the Witcher games did in comparison to the books. It's just perfection, pretty much. And they knew the lore backwards and forwards. They cared. Now, I can't trust them to care anymore because they're prioritizing ESG stuff and diversity and inclusion over telling a good story. And that's never a good sign. But let's hear what he actually has to say.
And I'm responsible for CD Projekt Group's reporting in this matter. I would like to present our strategic approach to ESG issues in the context of our business. This approach reflects our identity and our values. It also takes into consideration the interests of our stakeholders.
All right, so far it's a lot of mumbo jumbo, just like his position, stuff like that. Got to pause it occasionally to make sure it's transformative, but that's just a lot of buzzwords that I heard there. A lot of, oh, we're good, we're doing this, we're doing that. These are my job positions. Not a whole lot of super impressive stuff that I care all that much about. I'm saying
identified in a relevance survey, which we carried out for the first time in 2021. The survey produced a list of ESG topics regarded as important for CD Projekt. Our approach to these topics and the way we go about managing them have since been described in our first sustainability report.
All right, let's see if we can read this, or otherwise I'll just go to the website. Doesn't have it there. Goals. I'm gonna bring this up real fast. I want to read what's on here. Goals of the CD Projekt Red group in social media. Hopefully that'll bring it up. Is this the right one? It looks different. I'm wondering if that's just a graphic for this, because this looks a little bit different. Social responsibility. I'm not seeing a. Oh, here we go. Social responsibility. All right. So yeah, it looks like this is a graphic, but we've got a little bit of it here for us. All right. So CD Projekt Red, their goals: create an ESG strategy, formalization, the compliance. Great. And now they have to move compliant. Increase the number of training sessions with concerned legal issues and business ethics. This is all just a ton of buzzwords that ultimately don't mean a whole lot. I'm not. All right, come on. All right, looks like this website isn't really providing all the stuff that he implied that it was, so let's just keep going.
Report covering the year 2021. And now, let's begin with our products. Although this is perhaps not the first thing that comes to mind when thinking about video games and ESG, we believe that our primary means of influencing the world at large.
Influencing the world at large. It's a video game company. It shouldn't be its top priority. Yeah, that's something that happens, but that shouldn't be a priority. It's like our responsibility to influence people to our way of thinking is really important to us. It's like, no, your top priority should be delivering good, compelling games in whatever avenue that's supposed to be. Like, some games are gameplay driven. If you want a gameplay driven game, do that. If you want a story driven game, like the RPGs that CD Projekt Red is known for, focus on writing a good story. That should be your top priority, not what influence do we have on people? Are we reflecting the modern day? Are we doing all this? And it's getting tiring at this point that all these companies that are entertainment based feel like they have this moral obligation to preach to us and make us all better, rather than doing this. The thing that entertainment industry stands for is entertaining the customers. They've forgotten what their purpose is in the entire entertainment industry, and they're all too high on their own farts. You make so much money and you think you're a world dominating power. That's what a lot of these studios thinks. At the end of the day, we know that they're clowns. They're the court jesters, as Anthony Hawkins and Kurt Russell so perfectly put it. They should not think so highly of themselves, because we can just let them go. Cyberpunk, the release of that, they saw some backlash, but apparently it wasn't enough to realize that they should still be focusing on giving the customers what they want and not preaching to them. But let's keep going.
Is by developing games which can enrich gamers' perceptions.
Enrich gamers' perspectives. I should have finished that, because they're enriching gamers' perspectives. What does that even mean? It's like, yes, more of the preaching stuff, enriching their perspective, broadening their horizons, and it doesn't ultimately mean what they hope it means. And I'm sick of people saying, you've got a narrow perspective, you've got a narrow mentality. Let me preach to you how you can be better. That is not their purpose.
This is why we do not shy away from confronting socially important topics in the stories we tell.
So yes, I have a bit of a nebulous response to that comment, where he said we do not shy away from doing socially rough issues in their stories. Now, to a certain extent, that is something that you can absolutely do. I've done it. Include social issues into my own writing. My Odyssey of a Phoenix books, the first two books are right there, Down in Flames and Apocalypse Then, currently on sale. But I've included stuff like that in the past. But if it's actually a current day issue with real life repercussions and is a current talking point, I'm not going to give a firm opinion on anything. If at the most, I'm just going to ask questions and let the audience figure it out. I'm not going to say, this is the right way, do it this way. And there's some peripheral stuff that just kind of happens if you're adapting a world. Like, yes, there are things. So by the actual words he says, nothing really wrong about what he said of we're not steering clear of social issues. But the meaning behind it and what it represents in the current day industry represents some really horrific things that destroys popularity and destroys the well-crafted video games and stories that we've come to know and love. So, like the actual words, disagree with the sentiment behind it.
Our games depict social inequalities, the various paths people take through life, and the problems they face. We want to make
So that was all so super generic. Again, it's the actual words aren't that big of an issue, but the sentiment behind it. It's like, oh, we want people with different backgrounds who go through different things. And he's implying it in a racial, gender equality, alphabet community standpoint. But in the words themselves, that is a cool thing, varying backgrounds from different locations. But it has nothing to do necessarily all the time with a person's superficial attributes. A lot of people can have different types of backgrounds and exist in the same place with the same color of skin, the same sexuality, and have vastly different world experiences. So again, it's another example of, yes, show characters with different backgrounds. If that means diversity, great, go for it. But they're prioritizing the diversity of physical attributes and sexuality versus the actual story and the diversity of content, the diversity of thought that diversity should really be focused on in these types of stories. Craft compelling and diverse narratives. And if that includes diverse people, absolutely go for it. As long as it makes sense in the world that you're crafting and or adapting, go for it. But that should not be the top priority. Like this comment is again implying, a lot of this is taken at face value, not a big deal, but in the context of ESG, damning to these coming video games.
sure that the characters populating the worlds we create represent a diverse set of mindsets, social groups, and backgrounds.
Again, it's kind of the same thing. It's the social groups is where it really gets in. Backgrounds, fine. Social groups, it's not equality that they're wanting for. It's superiority, and we've seen that so many times, like with Guy Ladriel in the Rings of Power. She's not an equal to anyone else in that show because she's so awesome. So again, a lot of superficial, okay, in context, horrific, and the social groups, I'm not okay with that term, but if it's diversity in backgrounds, diversity in story, absolutely. I am on board with that from a superficial standpoint.
In The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, we tackled the issue of domestic violence, strained family relationships, and discrimination.
Yes, and those were done well in the story that made sense in the world and were done to improve the story and the characters. It's not like these things were shoved in regardless of how it affected these characters and regardless if it contradicted them. The Baron storyline that he refers to with the domestic abuse storyline is incredibly compelling, especially because they give us a complicated villain with the Baron. He's not just a generic evil man. He feels bad. He feels guilt. He tries to do better. It's a complicated, nuanced approach that benefits the characters and crafts a very engaging story. I'm only like less than 2 minutes in, and it's already driving me crazy.
Cyberpunk 2077, on the other hand, addresses alienation and dehumanization of society.
And none of those are woke talking points. Just like the discrimination, I forgot to mention in The Witcher 3, is not from a superficial attribute. Like the discrimination that's done against Ciri is not rightful, but understandable. She has abilities beyond anyone's imagination. She's the lady of space and time. She's like the only person who, in and of herself, has the ability to travel through the multiverse. She's America Chavez done well, basically. And so, yeah, the discrimination she receives sucks. And the discrimination The Witcher receives, again, it's with Geralt, it's kind of the same thing where it's not justified, but it's understandable, where he's different, he's mutated, he is not human, and it comes with a lot of stuff with it. So it's not you don't agree with it, but it's justifiable in the story that benefits his character and the world building integrated into a positive manner. And if it's like that, absolutely. See how much worse this can
Our
get.
products reach millions.
And alienation, that still, again, is not a woke talking point. Alienation in Cyberpunk is class struggles and basic stuff that you can get in any point in history. Basic authoritarianism. It's not woke, and especially because it's integrated into the story well. I really like the story from Cyberpunk and the game itself. I was lucky I didn't have any of those big issues right on release, but it still was a really good story. So I want them to continue where they were at, but this video just makes it seem like their future is in jeopardy.
Millions of people around the world.
And they're comparing the way that they've integrated into a past with how they plan to do it in the future and how Hollywood and the gaming industry in general is doing it in the future and currently. Those are not comparable ways of integrating this type of stuff. this was done well, and what they're planning is done with a mallet, regardless of the characters in story. And that's where I have a problem. That is a nuanced approach, because a lot of people have been attacking me saying, "Are you okay with messages in stories in certain instances?" Yes, I will stand by that when it's done well to the benefit of the story and it makes sense in the world, like the ones that we just talked about in The Witcher and Cyberpunk. Those were done well. These that they're planning are not. So that is what I consider a nuanced approach to this. It is not zero messaging. I think the default should be no messaging or no politic messaging. That's a little bit different than normal messaging. Like, none of the stuff that they've mentioned is political. So it's a nuanced thing that I try to always have. I try not to get too rooted into any side of this argument and take every situation on an individual basis, which is very difficult because of how often Hollywood and the gaming industry gets it wrong these days.
We want to focus on what's important and encourage gamers to reflect upon the choices that surround them. The second important aspect relates to our team. We strive to ensure that we are a company people love working with. We give our team members the opportunity to engage.
That all looks cool. Like, I have no problem with them doing stuff like what they're talking about. That's awesome. I would love to have that at a place of work. But again, it's what they're showing versus what they're implying. I'm very egalitarian in my approach to situations. The person who's best qualified for the job gets the job. A lot of the stuff with ESG and diversity inclusion is artificially elevating people who are not properly qualified to positions beyond their skill level, which ultimately creates crap products. I mean, She-Hulk and Rings of Power is a perfect example of that. And that's what I'm afraid that this is all going to lead to, is hiring game developers to work on these coming projects that aren't trained properly, who aren't skilled enough to tackle these big 150-hour open world RPGs. They're just not at that level yet. So hire based on merit. And if that person's diverse or not, great. I really think that resumes should not include names or genders to really just get that out of the equation. You're just looking at, all right, this many years of experience, this much training, and just focus on that and nothing else.
Engage in ambitious projects and pursue unique career development paths. This involves a range of internal training courses as well as our brainchild.
So in that, he's saying, oh yeah, we're going to hire based on diversity, and then we're going to train them to do the job. Now, training on the job is not a bad thing, but he's saying we're specifically not hiring people based on their skill, but on their diversity, and then we'll fix their lack of skill later.
The Promised Land Art Festival, whose 4th edition was held this year. The festival provides a unique opportunity for motion picture, gaming, and other creative industry professionals who represent various companies nationally.
That's cool. An art festival. I'm all right with that. Yeah. Grump, algorithmic congratulations. I appreciate it, man. Hail. This art festival sounds cool.
And market segments to get to know one another and swap ideas and learnings. In addition, our team members regularly share their experience and...
All right, I can't get through anymore. It seems like he's getting distracted at this point. But yeah, that's the Witcher stuff going on. So the TV show's woke and shit at this point. They're not even adapting the books at this point. The season 2 was supposed to be based off of Blood of Elves. They can't do Time of Contempt book 3 or book 2 now with what they did with season 2. They can't, because the majority of season 2 should have been about Yennefer and Triss training Ciri. I mean, Triss a little bit at the beginning, but mainly Yennefer teaching Ciri. But since Yennefer, they took away her powers, they took away about half the book just with that decision. Taking away her powers alone takes away about half the book. And they're introducing characters too early, like Fringilla. She shouldn't be involved for another 2 or 3 seasons. Kovir, no, that's not his name. I can't pronounce his name, but the Nilfgaardian warrior who was chasing Ciri in season 1, he really shouldn't be around yet till Baptism of Fire. I love what the character arc he goes through in Baptism of Fire, but it's way too early stuff going on. But at the end, it looks like we're not going to get the beginning of that trilogy until 2025 at the soonest. So all this is very far on the horizon, and this was way too much to announce right now if it's that far away. But that's where we're at with The Witcher, and I'm just really happy that they're ratioed on this and not on the other one. Kind of tells people where the audience is at and what their excitement is towards. New games, so excited. What are you going to do with those games? Fuck. If you like what I do here and want to see good, compelling stories that Hollywood will no longer give you, Check out my book series, Odyssey of a Phoenix, a mythological epic about philosophy, morality, and modern-day mental illness issues. Books 1, Down in Flames, and Book 2, Apocalypse Then, currently on sale. Book 3, Kill the Dark, coming soon.